Hello and welcome to a simple way to a faster triathlon, or why eating and drinking is so important. There's a huge time savings to make at Ironman, in particular half Ironman if you get this wrong. It could also be the difference between finishing and not finishing. So we're looking at how much water you need to drink, how much fluid you need to replace, and what you sweat. Electrolytes, vital, particularly sodium, with eating and drinking enough, and some very simple things you can do to make sure you do eat and drink enough when you're training and racing. I'm going to go into why eating carbohydrates will make you faster. I'm going to go through predicting how much you need to eat and drink. I'm going to go through what you need to do to practice it. We're also going to give you the skills to have a plan B. So welcome to part two. Part two is all about the electrolytes. Now, three main electrolytes will be sodium, potassium, and chloride. Normal table salt is sodium chloride. Go for the low sodium salt. That's you can see in supermarkets these days. That's a mixture of sodium chloride and potassium chloride. There are other electrolytes, calcium, magnesium, bicarbonate, but those are the three main ones, and particularly sodium. A few signs that your sodium is too low. You'll feel nauseous, might feel a bit sick, a bit confused, you're tired, lack of energy, your muscles are weak, might even have spasms or muscle cramps. A lot of people get muscle cramps when they're swimming, and there's a number of reasons for muscle cramps when you're swimming, but one big one will be your salt levels are too low, sodium levels are too low. One thing I have to say about all these signs, they're very familiar. I think most of us will have had events and races and rides and long training sessions where we've felt fatigue and lack of energy. We've got muscle weakness and we've got cramps because a lot of the time we've been drinking the wrong thing. We've been sweating too much sodium, or we went into it with too low levels, whatever we've been doing the day before or a couple of days before, and our blood sodium is too low. So how much salt do you lose? Well, that depends. Any coach who doesn't start the answer to a question with that depends, but it's very, very individual, and I can't say how much salt you're going to lose compared to me. What I can say is it doesn't normally change. So once you've worked out how much salt you're losing in your body, in your sweat per litre, say, it's going to stay the same. So if you're a salty sweater, you'll probably almost be a salty sweater, whether it's a cool day or a hot day. If you sweat very little salt, you're always going to stay like that. There are some very good online questionnaires out there. You can have a look on Google for them. That will help you to work out. But we're looking at salt staining on your clothes, what your sweat tastes like, how salty it is, and whether it stings your eyes or not. And you can get a fairly accurate way. If you want to do it spot on, there are a number of labs around UK, around Europe, other parts of the world that will do specific patch testing for sweat. So collect a small sample of sweat, and then they can test that for the salt levels in that. Once you know that, once you've got a pretty good idea of it, they don't have to be precise, but we need to have a reasonable idea. That's never going to change, whether you're sweating loads because it's 32 degrees and bright sunshine on your back, or whether it's a cold day. Sweat will always have the same concentration, near enough, of sodium in there. So something to work out once, and then we don't have to worry about it after that. We know what you need to replace. So source of electrolytes. Electrolytes, it's salt. At the end of the day, it's different forms of salt. So salty foods, pretzels, Pringles, crisps, all that kind of thing. You can get these effervescent electrolyte tablets. You'll have seen them in these plastic tubes you get from supermarkets or online. Bubble up and buy the electrolytes in there. You can add salt into your homemade drink. So you're making up your own energy drink, or you're just putting in a bottle of squash on a ride. A little pinch of salt in there. Work out how much you need. 500 milligrams isn't a huge quantity. Very easy just to add a small pinch into your homemade drink. If I'm running, particularly in a race, it's very difficult in the cups that you get to put one of those electrolyte tablets in. So I like to carry some salt tablets, and I also tend to carry those as an emergency. They don't take up much room. You can get little dispensers that fit in your handlebars, so you have a salt dispenser in your bike handlebar. There's usually a small amount in commercial gels and bars. Have a look on the ingredients list. It's not normally a big amount, but it's there and it helps. I would always suggest that you keep your water, your electrolytes, and your energy separate. Much easier to deal with them as 3 individual elements rather than trying to find one drink that fits all. There is no one drink to rule them all. I like to divide and conquer. Hot day, you're sweating a lot more than you expected. You're going to lose a lot more fluid. If you've got your energy mix a bit too concentrated for there, you're going to end up then drinking more and more of that. You're going above the amount that your body can absorb. You're going to start feeling queasy. You're going to start feeling a bit rubbish. You just stop drinking. So then you end up getting more and more dehydrated. So you're getting more and more dehydrated with a grotty stomach. Going back probably 10 years ago now, where I got this wrong is because I was drinking energy drink and I was sweating more than I'd planned, and I really slowed down. I probably lost 2 hours that day, time-wise, on the half Ironman, and I couldn't eat for hours and hours. It was about another 5 or 6 hours after I got home before I could eat anything. I was properly ill with that. So hot day, really bad. Cold day, we're going to get the opposite, really. You're not sweating as much. You don't need to drink as much. If you're relying on that drink to get your energy level, you're not drinking enough. You're not going to get enough calories. I'm going to go into energy in part 3, but if you're not taking enough calories, you're going to slow down again. So a lot of this is predicting what you need to take in, both water and electrolytes, knowing how much salt is in your sweat, practicing it, make sure it works for you, make sure you can do it, make sure it's practical on a race. You can have the best plan in the world, but if it's not possible and you're struggling to do it, it's never going to happen. But you need that plan B. And if I'd been a bit cleverer 10 years ago, I would have taken on some plain water. I ran past a pub in the race. Could have got a glass of water from the pub easy enough. If I'd drunk a glass or two, plain water, maybe with a little bit of salt in there, again, it's a pub, there's food, there's salts there, that would have made a huge difference that time. Stopping for 5 minutes to have a drink, I could have saved myself an hour and a half, 2 hours, very easily. So I wasn't prepared for that plan B at that point, but I want you to be prepared for a plan B if it ever happens again. And that's always in my thinking. I like my athletes to be able to cope with any situation. I'm hoping most of these situations, most of these problems never come up, but if they do, you know what to do. That's the end of part 2. The end of part 1 asked you all to do sweat tests, see how much how much water you're sweating out. This part, I want you to go and have a look to see how much salt you're going to be sweating out. So have a look at your clothes on a hot, sweaty day. Have a think about, do your eyes sting when you get sweat in them, or does it not bother you? Go and have a look at some of these online guides, particularly Precision Hydration and Fuel have a very good one for salt in your sweat. Go and work out how much you're likely to be sweating. We'll add that onto your sweat test from part 1, and that gives us a great basis then for working out where everything's going in part 3. So thank you very much. I will put a link to the Penn Endurance website where it's an article on the salt that we sweat. The news section, go and have a read of that for a lot more details. And there'll also be links to part 1, part 3 coming up on energy, and the full video in one single video if you're interested. But thank you very much for watching, and I will see you all in part 3.